3. Okay, just noted that we're now recording the meeting for posterity, should anyone wish to go back and see it at a later date. So turning then to the first item on the agenda today, that is welcome and apologies. So welcome again to the meeting. I will just take any apologies we have, and then I'll have something to add if I may. So are there any named apologies we have so far?
I have apologies, Chair, from Councillor D. Jones from Powys County Council.
Thank you very much. Are there any from the floor today that I think we're pretty well here? There might be a couple of latecomers, so we'll add them if need be later on, if that's all right. Okay, I'll take that as accepted. So as part of the welcome and apologies, what I will say is thank you to everyone who has been with us over the last 12 months as part of this subcommittee of the CJC, specialising in planning. It's been an eventful time, and in accordance with the requirements of the CJC constitution, each year following the AGM of the CJC, which was in July this year, we rotate the chairs both at the CJC, the Corporate Joint Committee level, and various other posts as well. But we also rotate the chairs of this subcommittee. So I'm standing down, and I would like to welcome Councillor Clive Davis from Ceredigion to take the chair, and I think I technically become vice chair for the following 12 months. So thank you everyone, and welcome Clive.
And thank you, Jake, and thank you for your excellent chairmanship throughout the last year. I know this experience of being on the CJC subcommittee has been, as you said, very interesting. So I'd like to formally thank in a minute my thanks for Jake's work. So moving on the agenda then, so we've done the apologies as mentioned. So we're looking at item 2 on the agenda, which is minutes from the previous meeting. So just going through those minutes for accuracy, first of all, can I just go through each page by page? So there are 4 pages on there. So page 1 and page 2, page 3, and page 4. And can I then take somebody to prose an accurate record of the last meeting?
I think I might as well do that as the chair of the meeting at the time, and having reviewed the minutes before they were published today. So I'm happy to propose those, Clive.
Thank you, Jake. Can I have a seconder for that? Anyone second those minutes that attended the last meeting? Edwin, thank you very much, Edwin. So everyone is happy with that. Can I just have a show of hands on the members then? Excellent. So that's noted there. Thank you very much. The next item on the agenda, which is item 3, is following up the letter regarding the SDP to the CJC for the Minister. So we've all had a copy of the letter, and I would suggest we just note the content of the letter for the minutes. So if we can do that, happy with that, everyone, all the members?
Yes, agreed, it's noted, Chair.
There we are, excellent. So moving swiftly on, it's quite good so far. So looking at item 4 on the agenda, which is resource requirements for the SDP. So to consider resource requirements for the SDP. So any of the officers want to take this on to run us through this initially? Sarah, over to you then.
Diolch, Cadeirydd. Yeah, so following the last SDP subgroup and the recommendations to the CJC, that a dedicated resource be found to support SDP work, pre-preparatory work for the remainder of this financial year. That was approved at the CJC in July, and since that time, internal discussions across the region have occurred to best quantify what that resource should be and how best to spend the identified resource that was portioned. So a number of options were considered. We could have appointed a part-time member of staff, But recruitment issues persist across the region, and our experience of recruitment campaigns, certainly for the last 12 to 18 months, has resulted in a number of vacancies not being able to be filled. So we didn't really want to, we wanted to ensure a resource quickly, and we didn't feel that that was necessarily the best option, particularly with it only amounting to a part-time short-term post. So we considered options around a consultant and a consultancy approach to this work. But unfortunately, it's not a defined piece of work that would easily be packageable, and we weren't able to readily consider any consultancies we'd done similar work to. So we would need to fall under a Sell to Wales tender, and that could have taken quite a period of time and not have been terribly successful. So given Ceredigion were the lead authority nominated at the past SDP group, I considered the options internally as to the staff we have and the work priorities we had, and a number of our work streams were coming towards an end in the autumn. So there was some capacity within our team to offer some support. So a 0.5 full-time equivalent has been found across 2 members of staff in our team to work on that until the end of this financial year. So essentially, the staff were chosen because of their skill set. One has a long continued history in the authority of planning and undertaking timetables and delivery agreements for past plans, from local plans to local development plans and everything in between. So it seemed that that was appropriate, that she should be involved. She's here today, and that's Katrin Cond. Excuse me. So Katrin's invaluable experience of long-term planning will aid to this project. And then the other member of staff I've asked to be involved in this is Connor Cook, and he is here today, and he has a good understanding of the draft SDP manual and an excellent knowledge of Future Wales and the policy requirements within which we would need to ensure the SDP fits. So between them, only losing them from regular policy work for 1 or 1.5 days a week ensures consistency in my team for the other elements of work that needs to be completed. So they have been drafted in. Thank you to them both for agreeing to that. We haven't undertaken this as a formal secondment. We've just reorganized work internally as they're maintaining on the same grades, etc., and it's still policy work within the remit of their contracts. So that's how we determined the best use of the resources, which is circa 35k, and the report outlines this. So that's essentially what we did on that. We can move to the next section, if you like, in terms of what will they be doing.
Yeah, does anyone have any questions at this point? I've got something coming up in chat here. Hold on. Oh, sorry. There we go. Jake's saying, welcome to the 2 members, and I welcome both as well. I've obviously worked with Katrin in the past. So nice to see you again, Katrin, and welcome Connor as well. So if there's no questions, we'll move on then, Sarah, if you could, with what they're doing. Thank you.
So as we discussed at the previous subgroup and at the CJC, there's quite a significant amount of pre-preparatory work that needs to be undertaken before we commit to a formal delivery agreement or a timetable for the SDP. And these stem from the need to ensure that we match the manual, though it must be said the manual is in draft at this point in time. We have not received the final manual. So we're working off the draft. It's very similar to the LDP manual, so it's not, we're quite familiar with the contents. But we want to ensure that the timeline for the SDP matches up with the existing plans that are going on in the region. We don't want a situation in which we're consulting at the same time on a regional transport plan, the economic plan, and LDP2 in Powys or LDP2 in Brecon Beacons, because, because it just would be confusing for the members of the public of the region, and it could result in missed consultation responses and difficulty. So a timetable, a timeline, if you like, needs to be established for the SDP, incorporating all these other regional plans and any other plans that are coming out, corporate plans, wellbeing plans, etc., etc. We also need to understand, before we get to a delivery agreement stage, a sort of mapped reporting structure. SDPs are new. The way in which we manage LDPs in the 3 authorities is different. The way in which we engage our members, the officer working groups we might have, the member working groups, they're probably similar, but they won't be the same. The CJC regs don't necessarily set out a mechanism for this, but this sort of engagement with our members, both those at the CJC and our local members in our authorities, is essential work. And so mapping that out will also need to be undertaken, and we've started on that. We also need to establish an SDP officers working group and consider whether it should be regional or LPA specific. We did originally start one a couple of years ago when the SDP was first mooted, if you like, but I suppose in exchange for the SDP subgroups, that sort of officer working group has fallen by the wayside. So we need to re-establish that working group, as well as map our skills regionally and ensure that the different officers working across the authorities were aware of who has specialisms in what, so we can make best use of those resources. So that's already being undertaken. We intend to undertake a comprehensive SDP regulations list, if you like, or checklist, so we understand exactly what's required of an SDP, because no region's really further ahead than we are. You haven't got anybody to benchmark against. We're setting the standard, if you like. So we need to ensure that what we're doing meets what's required under the regs, or certainly the draft manual as currently set out. We need to understand the resources required for an SDP. Obviously, we've experienced of delivering LDPs. We anticipate those to be similar, but how we manage that across the region needs to be mapped out and a draft budget developed. So all of this. Finally, sorry, the last one is consideration of IT requirements as well, because obviously all three authorities use different types of technology. Some have recently upgraded, others have quite old archaic systems. So to ensure a smooth transition across and to make sure that we can consult effectively, we need to agree a way forward on that. So early days work in those regards. There are two statutory requirements for starting an SDP, and that is a delivery agreement and a community involvement scheme. Once we started to consider what was required of those documents, that's what produced the list that I've just given you in advance, really, is that those decisions need to be made and that work needs to be undertaken before we're in a position to write those documents proper, if you like. So that's what we intend to do in between now and the end of the financial year. We have started to prepare some of these documents and we will be circulating those to our regional partners. And so we hope by the next SDP subgroup, we can bring to you the early days information that we have of where we've progressed to on those documents. So that's essentially what we're doing and where we're going.
Well, thank you very much, Sarah. There's a lot of work there to do, I've got to say. And yeah, any questions from the members on that extensive list that Catherine and Connor and a bit of Sarah is going to have to undertake between now and well, the March date that was mentioned in the agenda. Jake and then Gareth.
Just checking, Sarah and Peter, whether we're coming back to this under item 5 or because obviously I think item 5 is looking at our work programme as a CJC planning subcommittee, and obviously work might be intensifying there, or you bring back a report to update that perhaps once we know a little bit more. I'm sorry to jump ahead, Clive, but will you cover it under 5 or will we pick it up later, I suppose?
Well, Sarah, yeah. So you can answer that.
So I think that's the intended work streams from the point of view of the officers for the next period. And it would be my intention that we would bring back to you where we've got on certain elements by the next SDP working group. Obviously, if members around the table feel as though we've missed something from that list, or we need to add additional information on there, then more than happy to do that. That was our understanding of perhaps what was required for pre-preparatory work.
Yeah, and things may change and you may get an update, or there may be other developments, because there aren't many SDPs out there in Wales at the moment, as far as I know. Gareth.
To be fair, I think Jake's encompassed what I was going to ask regarding, how we fit into that, or if we're going to be updated as things progress, etc. But I think that combined with 5 has already been answered, Jahar.
Yeah. So I think we covered off on that. Peter.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Sarah. Well presented, Sarah. There's a lot to go through there, isn't there? Just really thinking that this is the selfish thinking now at the moment where we're standing as individual authorities. So we've also got to get, in my mind, internally committee approval if we're going to move towards SDP as well. So I think there's probably another piece of work there to add in around getting that approval internally from each of our organisations or each of the constituent authorities. So that's probably something I would suggest we add in as an extra into that. I think, Gareth, I know from the national partner, I'm really aware that you're probably coming to a crossroads point where you need to make a decision about which route you go as well. So I think it's probably something that between us as authorities, we can share a report, prepare something together. But I think that's probably where we need to go to get that resolution, that mandate that we all need if we are going to do this. Okay, and that's big implications for Powys. You all know my view is slightly different maybe to some of the others in the room, but if we're going to do it, that's what we need. We need to get that political mandate, I think, for that. Okay, that might be a discussion one, Chair, as well for the meeting. Others may have their thoughts around how we do that, but I think that's what we probably need to do.
No, and you're right. There would need to be a political mandate with this. I think I agree with that, Peter. Jake, do you want to come in on that?
Yeah, I was just going to come back on that point, just to say I was going to raise under any other business the point that Peter's raised, and I've got a bit of a form of words there, Peter. So I'll leave it to AOB so we can pick it up formally, as it were, as a next steps report and any mandates required that we need to bring back.
Okay, thanks, Jake. Gareth.
Thank you, Chair. Just to update from the officer perspective from the National Park, Helen and I on the call will be briefing members later this week on the work of the CJC and the options around the strategic development plan and the local development plan. So we will be starting that discussion, and that will lead, as Peter said, to a formal committee resolution in due course, depending on how members want to go forward. And then just in terms of Sarah's update, we welcome the proposed officer working group, and to resurrect that, I think that's key to coordinate the work between the local planning authorities behind the scenes. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, thanks, Gareth. Okay, any other points anyone raised on this part of the agenda? We'll come back to what you raised, Jake, on item on any other business then on that, on the formality of things. And we'll move on the agenda otherwise then, which is the regional LDP update. If there's anything somebody wants to come in on this, any updates from you at Powys, Peter, or?
Yeah, I'll do just really quickly. Obviously in LDP preparation process at the moment, we're slipping against our timetable. There's a lot of work sort of going on behind the scenes. We're really at that strategy building stage at the moment. So lots of evidence being gathered. We've been doing things like settlement audits. We're just about to commission, well, we've commissioned somebody looking at Welsh language, for instance. Just about to commission, I think I signed an order last week for renewable energy. There's some employment study work going on. I think what I'd like to see us do before Christmas is complete our key issues, vision and objectives. Also do some engagement around growth, levels of growth across the authority, looking forward. And then that would leave in us probably early in the new year, looking at where that may be distributed, the level of growth that we're planning. So, and then heading then towards preferred strategy consultation. Okay, so that's where we're going with LDP at the moment. There's work ongoing with candidate sites as well. Because we've slipped a little bit, what we're trying to do, I think we've got, I might get the number wrong, there's around 200 and just under 220 sites that we've got. We filtered down from the sites that we received, and we're trying to assess those at the moment, do a first or a second filter of those. So trying to weed out the good ones, really. So that work's ongoing behind the scenes. Okay.
Okay, thanks for that update. Any updates from the Ceredigion side of things? I more or less know the picture, but Sarah, over to you.
Just to sort of formally state for the minutes, Ceredigion's LDP is on formal pause as a result of phosphates in the Avon Tyvi riverine sac. We formally paused, I think it was October 2022, and that remains the case to this day. We obviously are working on strategic mitigations through the Nutrient Management Board. We wish progress with faster, but there's a number of issues that result in it being quite slow that are not locally based. So we're doing what we can on a regional scale. We formally pause at the end of the preferred strategy stage. So that's the section we got to. We have been advised by Welsh Government that we should formally withdraw the plan so that there's certainty for developers, because in any new plan, if we were to write another local development plan, we would need to start from scratch again, given the timetable and changes such as Future Wales publication, etc., etc. So we haven't made a decision on that because there is no statutory requirement for us to withdraw the plan. So we have decided to wait where we are, but that decision could change as we progress the SDP or other alternative plans in the region. So that's the current situation.
Great. Thanks, Sarah, for that update. Any questions from the members on the 2 LDP? No? Okay, we'll move on the agenda then, which is item 7, progress or learning from other SDP regions. Sarah, over to you.
Sorry, I was just going to say Banau Brycheiniog National Park
sorry,
could also
yes.
make an update on their LDP.
Apologies. Is there an update from Banau Brycheiniog? Is that you, Helen? You're on mute.
Sorry, apologies about that. Yeah, so we're in a very similar position to Ceredigion in relation to our local development plan. We resolved to review our local development plan. Unfortunately, due to the extent of the phosphorus constraint across the National Park Authority area, we are on a formal pause. We remain on formal pause, and as with Ceredigion, Welsh Government have advised that we formally withdraw that delivery agreement. We are in a position to review that, and as Gareth outlined, we'll be discussing that with members this coming week about how we take that forward. Work remains ongoing with the nutrient management boards with the Catchment Partnership, but we find ourselves in a very similar position that obviously strategic growth is challenging in our area. We also would like to highlight obviously we sit in two other strategic areas, and we'd like to highlight the fact that local development plan development is being stalled by the lack of ability to be delivering on strategic development plans. And so because there is no strategic vision across the area, we don't have a growth scenario which we would be implementing through our local development plan. So there are significant concerns in relation to the risk associated with progressing local development plan at this particular point in time. Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you very much. And that leads us nicely into item 7, actually, progress and learning from other SDP regions, which you touched on there, Helen. So are there any updates? Is any officer aware of what's going on in some of the other regions across Wales with the SDPs? Sarah?
So people around the table today, Peter, Helen or Gareth probably also sit on POSU. And so at that meeting, a standing agenda item is the strategic development plan. The last meeting discussion centered on the fact that we haven't had the strategic development plan manual and that has been delayed further. We're not sure, we're not clear when that will be released, but we don't expect it until perhaps the first quarter of next year, possibly even the second quarter. And that when progress updates are shared at POSU, it would appear that resources remain a significant concern for each of the other areas, and the ability to recruit staff to a separate seconded SDP team remains a strong concern. So I think it's fair to say, I'm happy to be corrected by other members who are here, that we are not any different position really from where they're at. It's still very much sort of pre-preparatory work. I don't believe that any of them are any closer to having prepared a delivery agreement than perhaps where we are.
Okay, a fair point. Is there any other officers who want to come in on what's there raised? Gareth?
Yeah, I just to endorse what Sarah outlined, Chair. As a national park, because of our geography, we sit on both the Southeast and Southwest corporate joint committees as well, and are part of the strategic development plan working groups. So the discussion is very much around resources. I think both CJCs in the South are making representation to Welsh Government around the need for additional resources, as we've done for Mid Wales CJC, and that there hasn't been any meaningful progress on either of those strategic development plans at the moment.
Okay, thank you, Gareth. And does anyone want to raise any questions around that or any points? Members? Nope. Okay. Well, thanks for the update on that. So it's pretty clear that, yeah, we're all more or less on the same page then, we'll say, on progressing SDPs across the country. So we're up to the last item on the agenda, which is AOB, and I know that you want to raise something here, Jake, so over to you.
I did, thank you. And of course, you know, we're sitting as a CJC subcommittee for planning, and of course what we are aware of are the conversations which have taken place at the CJC committee itself only last week, which during which they were indicating strong support for the development of a strategic development plan jointly across the region, not only to provide clarity over growth and growth distribution and an aspiration for you know, a positive rural Mid Wales vision, you know, for our area. But in that context, then we're rather charged with, you know, the responsibility to work out how to deliver that on their behalf. And I think, therefore, whilst we hadn't prepared this agenda in a you know, we prepared it in advance of that, I think we need to respond to that now. And therefore, I wish to ask officers to prepare a report on the steps necessary to progress jointly with the preparation of a strategic development plan for our region, and for Powys to take the necessary steps to pause/stop work on the preparation of its LDP 2, and we're doing so acknowledging that the resources are not available to continue with both of those. And I think that's been raised by us all, hasn't it, today in any respect of that, but no more so than ourselves. And for the monitoring officer for the CJC to advise on the correct protocol in respect of the decisions to be made, particularly in Powys, whether it's a cabinet and or Powys Council decision. Peter's given me this is a stop. Peter's given me clear advice on it, but I just think it would be very useful to have the monitoring officer of the CJC assisting us as a subcommittee in reaching any such decisions. So I would ask that that's done. I believe then that report, so carefully written by our skilled officers, can be topped and tailed to enter in the discussion streams for our relevant organisations. Perhaps, Gareth, not in time for the conversations you've triggered next week, but certainly we can catch up with that. And obviously, if you/Helen are working closely with Sarah and Peter, you can help shape that pending the conversations you're having yourself.
Yeah,
hopefully that, Chair, was helpful just to drive us forward from this committee.
No, that's succinct and clear, I think, as an action there. Nicola.
Yeah, just to say then, Chair, I'll take away that action to follow it up with the monitoring officer and get clarity on what's needed in terms of a political steer on this.
Okay, great. Thanks, Nicola. Sarah.
And we, as the lead, will take it up as an action to prepare the report, working with our regional partners. We'll organise a meeting of the regional officers working group to discuss this at the earliest, particularly given Gareth and Helen's discussions that are going at the moment.
Brilliant. No, great. Thanks very much, Sarah. Anything else anyone wants to raise under AOB then? No? Well, that was a nice, smooth initial meeting for me as chair, I got to say.
Right, chaired. You've got the job for a year.
Yeah, thank you. Date for next meeting, and I look at Kath on this one. Is that already in the diary? I can't remember, tell you the truth, sorry.
It's not as yet.
You let us
probably
know
go.
then.
Yeah, obviously, I'll let you know. Probably be looking at February, March time, probably March, because I know February is budget season for everybody.
Oh, yes, definitely. Okay, thank you very much. Well, Thank you everyone for attending. Oh, Nicola, you want to come in on a point there?
Sorry, yeah, I was just going to say, in terms of future meetings of the subcommittees, we're going to try and sync them with the Corporate Joint Committee, which meets quarterly. So we'll try and have meetings of all the subcommittees at least a month beforehand, so we can report progress upwards.
Okay, fair enough. Makes sense. Sarah?
It's my view that we should probably hold the next SDP subgroup slightly earlier than that planned, because we would like to bring a draft budget for the SDP forward before budgets are set in February. And we could also prepare that report as requested by Councillor Berryman in advance of that as well, so that members can make a decision based on the budget as well as the implications required in formally pausing. So it'd be my suggestion that an SDP subgroup should either be held just shortly before Christmas to give us as long as possible to undertake that work, or very shortly after Christmas so that the budget setting procedures can go ahead as planned.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. You're right, actually, on that. Do you want to come in on that, Nicola, first before I go to Jake?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Just to say that the CJC sets its annual budget in January every year, so it's slightly different to the councils. Okay. So even sooner, if we could, please, Sarah. And the date for that meeting is the 17th of January. Okay.
You're right with Sarah for that?
We will do our best.
Thank you. Jake?
Yeah, I think that's why I was being not pedantic, but slightly concerned about item 5 earlier. And I think Councillor Gareth was there as well, that we probably just need to make sure that we've got these meetings triggered or coinciding with all the trigger points that Sarah was picking up in her report, because there will be a number.
Yes.
So I think we might need to just be a little bit more frequent, as has indicated, because it could be a busy time of initial decision making, couldn't it?
Yes, you're right. So yeah, Nicola, Kath, just be aware of that, and then see what we can do in terms of the diary dates then. Okay, any other point anyone want to raise before we close the meeting? No? Okay, I'll Gareth Lloyd.
Yeah, just very, very quickly, and I don't know how everybody else feels, just to agree with what's been said, you know, since we are doing it Teams, Zoom, or whatever, you know, it negates the need to travel to Powys or to Cerrigon, etc. So if it helps the Secretariat, you know, 2 or 3 half-hour meetings rather than 1 2-hour meeting, you know, I can try and be as flexible as I can. And, you know, I think usually with Cerrigon and our Powys, our meetings are usually 9:30, 10 o'clock until maybe 12, 1 o'clock, and 2 till maybe 4. So if we need to work before, middle, or after that for a half-an-hour meeting, if that helps you to move things forward, then I'd be more than happy to you know, do what we can to try and get things done, basically.
Okay, okay, noted. Right, I think I can formally close the meeting now. So thank you everyone for your attendance, and see you soon. Diolch yn fawr pawb.
Diolch yn fawr.